Kino pavasaris. Kovo 18, balandžio 5 dienomis visoje Lietuvoje. Didysis partneris Ergo draudimo grupė. Informaciniai partneriai TV3, 15 min žmonės.
Mūsų karta pirmoji supratusi, kaip iš lėto kenkiame gamtai. Ir vienintelė, žinanti, kad dar yra laiko ją išsaugoti. Apsaugokime mūsų visų ateitį. Ergo.
Geriausius kino pavasario filmus parodys žiūrimiausia televizija TV3. Šeštadieniais 22:40.
Festivalis Kino pavasaris jūsų namuose. Visus filmus žiūrėkite Telia televizijoje jums patogiu metu. Telia. Įdomiau tik gyvenimas.
The laws of physics. The laws of life. Laws connect everything. We think that to be legal advisors, we must live under the same philosophy. Adapting to connect and connecting to adapt.
What's going on? How about you? Cool, man. Fuck you get back? Just got back this morning, man.
Hey, is this your truck?
Yeah.
Turn the music down. The music's too loud. Don't make me have to call the cops.
Anyway, what you got going on?
Just said working on this movie.
Movie?
Yeah,
About what?
about Q Street. Old neighbor, Atkinson, everything.
The fuck you want to shoot a movie about Q Street for? Alright, movie man.
Hey, I was looking for Demetrius. You know where he at?
I don't know.
So, hello everyone who is watching us. This is the fourth episode of Kino Pavasari's late night talks next to the screening hall. Unfortunately, only the virtual one. And tonight, me and my dear co-programmer of Vilnius Film Festival, Andrei, who is joining us from Bucharest, we invited Berta Talmantaitė, who is a well-known multimedia journalist and co-founder of our beloved Nara, to speak with us about a very special film called Residue, which is coming from US and is directed by Meravi Gerima. So, hello.
Hi.
And
Hi.
and Berta actually wanted. I had a feeling that this is the film that is going to resonate somehow with your field of interest, but also hopefully I somehow believe that also your aesthetic taste and likes and preferences. So tell me whether it was a good shot. Did you like the film?
Yeah, I really liked it. And it was the recommendation of Mantė, your colleague, who recommended me a few movies. And every year I check the recommendations of her and you and all the programmers and then watch. And this was one of the first movies I've actually watched. And yes, it was like, I pay a lot of attention every year to the documentary films. As a journalist, I always feel very interested in what's happening in the documentary field. And then I watched the rest. But this year, I think I made a switch, and I really enjoy non-documentary films. And this was one of the first that I watched, and it was a very good beginning of the festival. The program is amazing. Thank you, guys. I'm enjoying watching every day. So yes, aesthetically it was very beautiful. Sound was very nice, and the story, I think, is very very important, and it resonates in so many ways with what is happening in the real world. So it's kind of a continuation of what's been happening lately, and we can connect it with news and with shifts in the society, in the world. So I think there's a lot to talk about.
It's funny that you say that you always prefer documentary in Kino Pavasaris, but this film actually has quite a bit of qualities of documentary, right? With the shots of the street life in US. They're like almost almost the same that we watch on the news in recent years.
Exactly.
This film.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, one of the qualities of the film is exactly this type of authenticity that Murray brought to the film. I mean, it's besides the fact that it's a fully independent movie, so he had to kind of rely on kind of grassroots, impulsive way of filmmaking. It's a film that really reflects the community of Q Street. Which is a community, from what I understand, that where he actually grew up. So the film is very autobiographical, and with the exception, I believe, of very few kind of actors in the film, like very, very few characters, the movie is essentially made up of non-professionals, like other friends or family of Marawi or people that were from the neighborhood. So it definitely feels like of the moment, of the place. I could just go on. It's a wonder of a film.
I remember because obviously what is happening in the current world, it's usually reflected in cinema like 1 year later or sometimes even later on. There's some sort of delay all the time, but then at the same time, like when we construct the program and then we're looking for films for the program, we're always looking for something that is somehow relevant to today's world. And then I remember when I watched the film, I felt like we need to sort of somehow reflect with the current actuality somehow also with the program. And then this film is just like so straight to the point, and I somehow like really thought about Kino Pavasari's program as a sort of media to reflect on the onto this world. It somehow felt an urgency to screen it in a way.
Right,
and I guess something.
No,
Sorry.
cool.
No, I guess this is probably something that like also Nara, which is a multimedia website, news website. When then you always react like really immediately on what is happening. And I remember like listening podcasts on the Black Lives Matter in Nara, and then it's just I felt like there is some sort of a connection between making a program and then leading maybe the news website.
Yeah, because you have to choose from, like, you can't reflect everything. You have to find a thread maybe that connects things, and then choose some specific topics you want to talk about. And since we're not like news platform, but we more focused on long reads or podcasts and documentary projects, which means we're not immediate. But it means that when you do publish something, it has to be still relevant. So you can't be late, but you're not very quick. And so I think it's the same with the movies. It's different timelines and time frames, but still, like, you still have to keep the relevance somehow, and then therefore it has to be something bigger than the topic itself. And I think what I've noticed watching this year's films, I've seen almost 20 by now, and what was, I think, one of the reappearing themes and topics was the sense of belonging, which was also very strong in this film, because this topic of community, of belonging or not belonging to it anymore, or wanting to come back to it, and then being accepted or not being accepted because you left in the first place, I think is very, very important these days, like the last year that we live in, because we were all stuck in our home countries or wherever we are without being able to move. And so to be able to survive somehow and to stay sane, we had to come back to this question of belonging in a broader sense, to create our community, even though it's online or whatever, but to have someone to share what you're going through and what we are all going through as a society. And so in this film, I think this question was very also important and also very painful, because Jay comes back wanting to do this film about his community, but he's not really accepted to it anymore because he left and he kind of abandoned his community, his family, his friends, and some of them accept them, but some of them don't see him as a part of it anymore. And so I was wondering, like, you know, there's a very thin line when you leave, how you leave, for your peeps, for your people to be supportive and to be happy for you, and then to welcome you when you come back, if you come back. And then if you choose another way to leave without even maybe saying goodbye, and you just kind of abandon, then you cannot expect to come back like nothing happened, and to hope that everything was just the same like you left, and then you're going to come back and jump in with everything that you had somewhere else and just continue, and then even try to almost abuse what is happening there to create your movie. And there was a very funny phrase that he said, which I heard as a photojournalist and journalist in general so many times, to give the voice to the voiceless, which is so such a triggering phrase that is so bad, I think. And I think he used it like on purpose to stress this approach, which I think if you start with wanting to give a voice to the voiceless, you're already in the wrong place, and there's nothing good that's gonna come out of it, because you don't have to give a voice to someone who has the voice already. You have to listen. And if you don't, if you just want to give a voice to someone who you say is voiceless but is not really voiceless, then there's no meeting point. And this is, I think, where the problem starts. And it's everything is portrayed so gently with details without explaining or telling things, that for me, that was one of the nicest things, that there's so much space for the thought and for interpretation and for feeling, that I really liked, that there was no like teaching or telling or something. It was just some small details that you have to work with to go for a walk after a film and go through what you just saw in your head and connect with what is happening in your life and in your community.
And I mean, I like first of all Delante's response in the film, which is that, you know, like, you're not here to save us or to save me, you know. I mean, and I think the film is very conscious of that, you know, because it obviously, you know, Jay is a stand-in for Marawi. It's, you know, the film being autobiographical about Marawi actually wanted to make a film after having heard about one of his old friends having kind of gone missing. In a way, it is giving voice, but he's giving voice. I was trying to find it now. But speaking of books and kind of inspirations, Marawi said that rather than giving voice to the voiceless, he's trying to apply something that he read from a spoken word poetess, which is called refleshing the bones. I mean, essentially meaning that he's essentially digging up the buried heritage of his community, and he's trying to kind of piece it back together for themselves, for himself, for the community, and this is something that this is why I think the film is so powerful, in that it's almost like it's a scream of a person, of a community, of a nation, and it encapsulates so much of these kind of individual struggles, community struggles. It puts it, and we should say this film was made, again, it was made independently, but the film came out initially at Slamdance at the beginning of 2020, where it won Best Actor, and it also won the Best Audience Award for Best Film. But this was before the George Floyd protests. Granted, Black Lives Matter had happened already, and one could see, actually, so it is very much of the moment, because unfortunately, the George Floyd tragedy happened, and then everything kind of really, really, thankfully, kind of picked up visibility internationally. But it's also a continuation, I would say, of the work that Marawi's father, Haley Garima, who is a very, very famous filmmaker, who was part of the LA Rebellion movement in the States in the late 60s, early 70s. So he's kind of carrying the torch of cinema, kind of like the lineage through the family. But he's also, yeah, like you said, Berta and Aistė, it's a film that is of the moment, and it speaks with a voice that is so acutely of our time. We have seen representations of African American struggles, on screen numerous times, and mostly depicted by white or kind of the dominant culture filmmakers, and we have our kind of Spike Lee's to kind of, but they're of a certain kind of, not generation, I should say, but kind of decade. But this just feels so fresh. There's something so fresh, and almost like it's something that needs to be like a voice that really needed to kind of let itself out, which is what I think is also reflected in the way that the film is made. It's very, it's almost like an emotional gut punch, but at the same time, it's very tender and so fragile. Like I've never, before, kind of preparing for this, and not preparing, but I rewatched the film, and I cried again. Not like crocodile tears, but it's such an incredibly emotional and tender movie, while at the same time being fully upright and angry. It's yeah.
Yes, the feeling of this gentleness I liked a lot. It's like it's so intimate. It's like you've been there, but then also, yeah, the anger, the pain is huge, and so the combination of these two, of this gentleness and like this simplicity, and then this another feeling of frustration or anger. Yeah, the combination is amazing.
Mm.
I think one of the because
sorry, Andrew.
No,
it's
no, I was just gonna say that I think what very easily kind of sets this up for the film is the time when it's set at. The movie takes place in the summer, so you have this kind of like summer days, a lot of kind of like the oppressive heat, which with it comes this kind of languid, slow, rhythm of life. And then there's a lot to be said about the way that he uses sound, and kind of overlaying past and present into one kind of continuous consciousness. It's sorry, Aistė, you were going to say.
No, Berta, you were.
No, you finished first, and then, yeah, because Andrei mentioned sound, and that was one of my like one of the things I liked the most also in the film, and my absolutely favorite scene was when he was sitting in this room and playing with the chest and with his hands on the chest and on the leg. And it was like this, for me, just this, and it was mixing the sound with this beats and what was going on outside. But then also I saw so much in it, like from the past and connecting the past and what is here now, like the heritage, the family, the tradition, the everything that comes like from way behind until now. And for me, that was like I rewinded and I watched it again because it was just so powerful. So when Andrei mentioned the sound, I just remembered the scene that I wanted to talk about as well.
Yeah, that the sound and also this like the switch between subjective and objective cameras all the time. That sometimes, I mean, it really makes you feel like you're going back with him to this place where, of course, we as viewers we were not, but then he manages to create this feeling of the first time, like first time after a long time, meeting those people, those corners, like seeing the places and so on and so on. Like for me, one of the like really memorable scenes was when it's like really nicely played with the camera is when he approaches the group of people that are sitting on the stairways, and then they just keep on talking, and then he intervenes and then he chit chats, and then suddenly starts just to ask about Dimitri, his friend that he's looking for. And then we see the group of people, like speaking with him, and as if the camera is his own point of view. And then the camera stays, but he leaves, and then the group of people continue speaking. And that was for me like such an, I don't know, like powerful way of engaging the audience with his, I don't know, with his own personal journey. What was actually he was doing with this film, and that's incredible. Actually, it's Andrei.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry, I keep interrupting. Go ahead.
There's a like a little bit disturbing delay of the sound when it's like difficult to finish and start a new conversation. So I'm sorry for you guys, and sorry for those who are listening, and it's making it a little bit messy. But I was about to jump to another film, so Andrei, go ahead with your thought that you wanted to share.
You about to jump to another film. No, I just wanted to watch it because what I also like, apropos of what we were talking about earlier, it's a film that says so much without being very kind of didactic about, and the way that it sets up the relationships of the community. I love the way that the way that his parents talk. There's this very kind of slow kind of cadence to his father, who has this kind of like wise, but very calm and not necessarily kind of judgmental or kind of controlling manner. And it's almost as if a lot is, everything is already understood, and there's nothing that necessarily needs to be said in order to explain anything to anyone. It's almost like everybody is on a very kind of communal level of understanding and of more cohabitation, coexistence, and I don't know, there's something very, very, very wise, I would say, to this kind of dynamic that exists.
And sorry, Berta.
Go, Aistė.
No, actually, I just wanted to like maybe to reflect on this autobiographical stories powerfulness, because it's a coincidence that I just came back from Q&A with Danny Rosenberg, the director of The Death of Cinema and My Father Too. I don't know, Berta, if you watched it.
No, not this one yet.
And I just thought that this is so incredibly brave to bring your own personal story to the screen and to share it in order to tell actually a bigger story, which in case of the death of cinema and my father too, it's a like really universal story about the grief and humans like I don't know like this kind of desperate person who is desperately trying to grab into the life when actually the death is like really really close through the media of film. And then in the case of Maravi Gerima, it's a it's a way to tell a much going through his personal story. It's a way to tell a much bigger story about not only about the racism but also about the gentrification of a lot of places in America. And this is and I think that this is told like a really in a very honest way, but also in very very I don't know, exact, direct way, touching these issues. The gentrification, I think, is like being criticized through like this. I don't know. I feel like I'm lacking the words, but it just felt like it's like really straight to the point, really sharp critique to the processes that are happening.
And with these personal stories, it happens quite often now, I think, in photojournalism and documentary and film as well, that we can see these personal stories, people going back to look for, I don't know, their roots, looking for where they belong, where they came from, what they are. And so we can find these narratives of personal stories quite often now. But I think it's what was very what I liked here, that it wasn't one-sided. It wasn't about Jay and only him and he as a good guy who came to make a movie to save everyone, but there was this very multidimensional, and you could see the situation from different sides, because often with, maybe not often, but sometimes with these personal stories, there is a danger that the story is going to be so personal that it's not going to show the rest or the other stories that that actually makes the story, because there's never one story. There's always many faces of this one story, and there's a danger that if you're just going to focus on your story, everything the rest of it is going to be warped. It's not going to be it might be even like abused, and it might be destructive in a way, to tell the story in this way. And what I liked here was that it wasn't, that you could see and understand everyone in the movie and why they are like they are and what impact it has on each other. I think that was beautifully displayed in the storyline.
I mean, I think what's also important is the way that the film begins, right? Because it's this kind of off voice, which doesn't belong to Jay, and it actually poses that exact question. You know, why are you telling this story, and for who? What's the purpose of it? And mind you, this is also, I mean, this kind of external, questioning voice is also not just heard, but I think visually it's also very interesting, because already the film kind of sets up this multi use of of either like archival footage, which is meant to kind of reflect a certain atmosphere or a place, almost diaristic, journalistic, kind of personal home video, and then when they were very kind of slowly eased into like a more present chronology of the film. And I would because rewatching this again, it really reminded me the opening shot, the whole tunnel shot, that's in the dark, and all you see are the overhead lights. For those who are watching, I would really recommend that you look up Gil Scott Heron. He has a beautiful piece called "New York is Killing Me," and there's a visual kind of installation remix made by Chris Cunningham, and it is very much akin to what that shot is. So just kind of use that to kind of pitch.
To see.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's also, Gil Scott here, and kind of spitting beautiful verses with his almost grave kind of gravely voice, and it's him singing towards the end of his life, of his career. But the whole visual, the whole sequence that Marawi did, it's quite experimental, and it's a very explosive way. I keep saying explosive, but this whole film kind of just like sparks with the same intensity as all the fireworks and all the memory sequences right from the get-go.
Yeah, and it's what you said, I think, is very important. What in the beginning, he says something like, did you really think the script is going to be enough, or something like that? Something that he's questioning, and that he's kind of feeling that he fooled himself, that he's going to come and he's going to do it, and it's just going to solve everything. And then what's the point? Why you do it? And then that he continued, that this question is in the beginning, but you kind of can feel that maybe it was actually from the end, after he did it, but it's in the beginning, which means that even with all those questions in the beginning or in the end, there's still a point in doing something, even when you think that maybe there's not, but like something deep inside you tells that there is. And maybe the talking itself, or the process itself, maybe if you didn't even write a script, but you met those people who made you realize that you're not going to write a script, is a point, which is sometimes very hard to take and realize and make something out of it for yourself. So it's like a circle from which it starts and it kind of ends with it. It could end with it. And I think for the creators, like filmmakers and journalists, photojournalists, and you also, film festival creators, it's important, like, what's the point? And what's the point to show these films on computers when we cannot go to the cinema theaters, but you still do it because there is a point, and there is a point in creating, even if it's just the creation itself, the process itself.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that he's like with this questioning of the point and questioning of the result is like already. I mean, it's just, I totally appreciate this honesty coming from the filmmakers when it actually emphasizes what Berta is saying, that actually the process is the case. I mean, like now we are all as a society probably are in processes, and hopefully good processes for changes, etc., and so on and so on. And then, as you say, that maybe like telling these stories is part of bigger processes that are happening. But Berta, you've mentioned. No, please say.
No, because I wanted now to drift to a bit sadder side. So I'm not sure if it's a good way to do it, because when I was saying that it's the process and everything, and then I started to think about like Jay's parents, or especially the father. He was very nice to his friends, and he said, we're going to keep you out of the jail and we're going to help you. And still, it didn't go well. So for me, that was very like painful to watch and to see that the possibility was there, the good intention was there, the community was kind of there, but also falling apart, but still there. So there is something, but then these external forces, or whatever that is, still breaks you and still destroys you. And so it's not enough to just have good intentions. You have to actually be actively involved and do more than you think probably that is enough. It's maybe not enough just to be there and to say that you're there if you need help. Maybe sometimes we need to be more aggressive with helping each other, or I don't know. I was thinking about that and that part made me sad somehow. And I was thinking that sometimes maybe we just too passive to make a change or to help each other or to create to keep community together or to keep each other on the track. And maybe sometimes we need to put more and maybe then it will be better, but maybe not. Maybe the external forces are stronger.
No, but I mean, that goes straight. Go ahead.
I just mentioned that you touched upon the general theme of this year's KINO PAVASARIs, which is that might be one of the questions to the leading question of the festival.
And granted, I mean, in the end, Jay's father says, "Listen, the world is a ghetto. There's, the forces are too strong, and you see it happening all around them. There's nothing that they can stop it. And I think this is where you sense the frustration of the film itself. And apropos of what you were talking about, the process being just as important, or perhaps maybe more important than the kind of concluding message or answer. The film is not perfect. I mean, it has all these, some of the acting is not great, is not up to par. It's maybe perhaps uneven, but there's this, the desire and the kind of energy behind it, that kind of is its internal motor, to kind of keep going, keep telling the story. That has so much more force than everything else around, because everything else around, they're kind of signifiers, they're just things that are being pointed to. But the life force that kind of connects all of these characters, Jay's father is so deeply connected to Reggie. Reggie is the father, but he's so deeply connected to Mike. When Mike gets killed, it's devastating. It's not just devastating for Mike's mother, but for him as well. And just a little kind of signal, I should say. Mike's mother, Miss Tanya, I think is her name in the film, is actually Marawi's mother. So just
wow.
Yeah. But exactly this, and it's not just it's gentrification. But it's also the way that, because I think you can change some things. I think being aware, first of all, and this is something that I think, or this is why I think the theme of the festival is so important. It's not, first of all, it's it's a very philosophical question that could be kind of just considered, but it also applies to the viewer. What do you take away from the film? How do you engage with whatever is being put on screen? And realistically, how do you really kind of take that into your real life? One of the things I remember Marawi was, and it's clear in the film, it's not just the white gentrification, but it's all part of something that we see happening around us. A consumer culture that we keep kind of feeding into, and by feeding the monster, it just keeps going and going and going. But it's also the way that one looks at certain things. One looks at a community. One looks at a certain type of cinema. And I think Residue does kind of question, what type of cinema do you expect out of an African American community? Do you expect it to be this kind of tragic story of the rags to riches success? Do you expect a film that's kind of tame and kind of says, "Oh, thank you, it's okay, we will stick to to kind of build our own community"? Or do you make a film also where Jay at the end has so much anger that he just goes up and straight up punches a white guy because that guy kind of just crossed the street and was extremely passive aggressive in his kind of racism? And I think this is also why I should say Residue didn't really sit well with a lot of people. Some people thought that it was a bit too aggressive. and really wasn't, it didn't really toe the industry standard line of Black cinema, of African American filmmaking. But I think this is also what makes it really daring and necessary. And if you feel uncomfortable as a white person, good. I should say,
Yeah, exactly. And that scene where you mentioned about the punching is also was painful for me, because sometimes, you become what you expect it to be, even though you are not actually. But when you hear it repeated so many times, and when you see it, if it only were the crossing to another side of the street, then there's nothing left to lose. They see you like this already, and it doesn't matter if you do it or not, they still see you like this. So that was also, and what you said, you could show the community as being a victim and just suffering, but you can also show the other side of the community itself destroying itself, because the guy was attacked by the other guy from the community, and then he punches because he lost this patience with what is happening. So that these layers and the showing the dark side of the bright side also, I think what made it so powerful to watch and to understand that there's no black and white, literally, but there's many layers, and it's so important to try to understand and to feel all of them, and why something is happening, and how, and what impact it has, and then how it connects. And I've heard about the movie as a movie about gentrification, but then it's like, for me, I wouldn't never say it's a movie about gentrification, because this gentrification was just a symbol of these external forces that you have to deal with, and how it influences you and the community and relationship between each other. But then it stays in this, I wouldn't say it's about that for me at all, I guess.
But Berta, at the beginning you've mentioned that you've watched almost 20 films from Kino Pavasaris this year. This is an impressive number. What else did you watch?
I watched, I think, 19 movies and then 3 shorts, so it's 22 maybe in total. And it's a really nice program, as I told you. I can connect one movie with each other, and then everything just intertwines, and it's interesting to watch a documentary and then fiction, and then it's combines together with what I read before or what I watched before. So yeah, and this was one of my favorites, but then I also like The Night of the Kings, The Painter and the Thief. And even though they are all very different, but still you could say there's something that connects them, like the sense of belonging, the relationship, the connection, the community, even though it's just 2 people, like in The Thief and the Painter and the Thief. And the storytelling, it's very interesting when the storytelling becomes the part of the storytelling, like residue of the Night of the Kings, and the storytelling becomes the main line of the storytelling. And it's beautiful to have this diverse program with movies from Asia, Africa, Europe, Latin America I watched as well, so and North America, so all the continents. Good job, guys.
Well, this is so nice to hear and actually to hear from someone that watches a lot, and yeah, it's great to hear that actually the films that we select they resonate somehow, and the people even with these really limited conditions. But we've been already talking 3/4 of an hour, and we always with Mantė finish these late night talks with the question, what's next for our guests. What is next that you're planning to watch, Berta? What is on your list of like the most urgent titles to watch?
So today I started to watch Grit, and I didn't finish, so I have to finish this. And then what I wanted to watch? Today I watched also The New Order, which was brutal, but very interesting. And so I like to switch, like to go from from Mexico I came back to Grit was Norway, no? So I'm gonna go somewhere else now to watch something. I want to watch this. I don't know what's the name in English. Gagarinus.
Gagarin.
So maybe I thought maybe it has another title. So yes, I want to watch this. So probably that's for tomorrow.
I think great list. Great.
Did you see Valkenze Forever?
Yes, I loved it.
Apropos of kind of, memory, rebuilding identity, that type of
yes, going back, personal story, connection, community. Yes, that's a beautiful movie, crazy story.
This is the title that I did not hear any regrets on watching it, like only amazing feedback, only like really touched people, and yeah, I was just like keep on remembering the immediate reaction when I watched, and I felt like this is like really the title that resonates, and it's something that and then if you have such a strong feeling as a programmer, probably the audience will also feel it. So this is amazing that it just confirms the rule, like to sometimes to listen to the gut feeling that you have about the film as well. So probably that's the end. Thank you so much for.
I would like to. So I would just on the heels of Revizido, of anybody who's watched the film, hopefully, I would really recommend you take a read of this. Ta-Nehisi Coates' The Beautiful Struggle, which is Coates kind of going back and kind of writing out his young life and just kind of thinking back on how he got to where he is. But it fits very much in, like it's in the same vein of Resident. So just want to put that out there.
Thank you, Andrei. Thank you, Berta.
Thank you for having me.